Hi there, James here. So this is to go over what we did in the group session yesterday on January the 13th, 2022, and for anyone else that wants to watch as well. So I'll try and keep this quick. So basically here I'm concentrating on the convert image to grease pencil. Obviously there's loads of other things we can do with grease pencil. So for example, if I shift and add, I can go here and I can add a blank. So that's a blank grease pencil, and then we go to draw mode, and we can draw, shapes with it like that, draw lines with it like that, and fill things in, fill the lines in, and then animate them. Okay, so that's one thing that we're not really going to look at today. And you can also do other things with grease pencil. You can set up the whole a whole collection or an object to have lines around it. Or in the scene as well. So for example, if I click on this cube, I can right click and then I can go convert that to grease pencil, and already that's really great, this new feature that just converts it to a shape to grease pencil. So rather than painstakingly drawing around these lines, the mesh, then you've got this going on here. So I'll show you the splash screen because I'm using Blender 3.0. Often I watch videos on Blender when I'm trying to refer to something, find something else, and it's so old that they probably should have deleted it in a way, I guess, because it's not relevant to the new versions. So if you're looking at this in the future, which I'm sure you will be, then let me know if anything's out of date and I'll try and do another recording or update it. Okay, so the new thing in Blender is really revolutionary for me and for those of you that love traditional drawing. Before this, you would have had to, there's a bit of Windows update going along, you would have had to have, if you have a drawing, so like I draw in real life, say I've got a drawer every day, you'd have to basically get your drawing into Blender like this. I'll just get this simple drawing that I did. So I'm just going to, from a folder, I just left click and drag, and I make sure I'm in the right view or the front view. And this is a really quick drawing, by the way. This is like done in 2 seconds in Glasgow. So sometimes I go to cities and I just draw, and then I forget what I'm drawing. And this is why it's very, very loose. I like this kind of work that I do. I prefer it sometimes to doing more longer work. But having said that, I do lots of these drawings, so some of them I don't like, and then some of the others I do. So I've dragged the Sims. So now this is like an image in Blender, and I've made sure it's on the right view like that. So I'm going to press 3 on the number keyboard to the right, the number keypad, and I'm going to left click this, and I'm going to right click, and all we do is just trace this image to grease pencil. So you may be aware of some grease pencil things previously to this, such as materials and layers, which are very important. But I'm going to take you through this process and do that as I work on this. And the end of this, I'm just going to make this very, very quick, very basic animation. And then you can do this sort of thing with your own drawings and put it onto, say, YouTube. So I make sure I've selected this here. So this is an empty, actually. It's a bit confusing, but it's actually when you drag an image into Blender, if you haven't specified dragging images in as planes, then it comes in as an empty. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to go to trace image to grease pencil, and there's some loads of settings here. Usually if you press OK, it's okay if it's a very defined black and white drawing like this. In some ways this should have been more contrasted, but I'm just going to press OK and see how this is going to work. Okay, so already it's converted it fairly well. I'll just delete the original actually. So we've got the nice lines all defined like that. And if you've never used this before, but you've used things like Illustrator or Inkscape, you're converting it to a vector. Okay, so when we've got this, we want to start drawing, and it's like, how do we start drawing? And you might even click on that. That's not the grease pencil. The grease pencil, you have to go to the grease pencil mode up here. So you're going to go to draw mode, okay? And then here, what you need to also remember are your layers, your grease pencil layers, and also your materials. Okay, and in the layers, you can see here you can turn it on and off like in Photoshop. So we've got opacity. I think this is still relevant, this little bug. You have to do that at 0.99 or you won't be able to see the colors that you make behind it, because this, I'll take this to, yeah, you can see here it's grey, but it's not see-through. So I have to make that as 0.99 on the layers, on that layer, because that's the trace layer. Okay, so we can double click and call that something like, lines. Okay, and then we want to make a new layer. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this, say, skin. Yeah. Okay, and on the skin layer, so remember we're in draw mode. Remember to always be in that when you're doing grease pencil. So in the skin layer, I've got, what do I want to do? So I'm going to go to the materials, and at the moment we've got stroke, which is that, and then we've got, I'm going to turn it off, and we've got holdout, which is that grey one, that grey color and that's why I clicked on the opacity on the lines layer there, because that, if you ever have a problem when you draw something and you can't see the color below it, that's probably what's happening. So anyway, I'm going to make a new, so we're on the material now. I'm going to make a new material by pressing the plus, and then I'm going to go to new, and then I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to call this skin again. You don't have to call the layer on the material the same thing, but often I find, because I'm just dealing with a few colors, I keep the layer and the material name the same. So here we've got stroke. So when we draw now, we're only going to get a stroke. Okay, Control and Z. Sorry, Control and Z. So we don't want that. We want to get a fill. So I'm going to turn the stroke off, the stroke tick, and I'm going to do the fill. So now if I left click and drag, it makes a nice shape like that, but it's black. So I'm going to Control Z, and then I'm going to go and just make kind of a random skin color. We can change this later on. So like that. I'm going to make sure that I'm at least on viewport shading, because below that we can't see the color. So I'm going to just pan a bit, and what I'm going to do is, you need sort of to make a broad sweep. So I'm going to left click and drag this around and around and around, wherever I think the skin's going to be. So it's probably going to go there to there, and then I'll left click. Whoops. Actually, I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to left click, and I'm going to drag, making sure I want to cover where all the skin area is. It's a bit like inking on a cartoon. I'm doing this quickly, so it's not that accurate. I've got a bit there, but sometimes that can look good. But unfortunately, what you can see is that the skin is over the black line. So what you need to do is you need to go to your layers and this little button here, and you go down, and now we've moved the skin layer down. We haven't, the skin material, that can be on any layer, if you see what I mean. So any of these materials you could draw on any layer. So if I select that, I can draw the skin on that layer. But if I hide that layer, that's interfering with the black. So, keep keep your layers separate. Thank goodness I could undo that. I'd have to start again. So we've got lines and skin. So I'm going to go to the material again, and I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to call this one hair. Okay. H-A-I-R. And then again, I'm just going to do it on the fill. So take stroke off, take fill on, and let's make the hair a kind of goldeny red color. And then I'm going to go to make a new layer, and I'm going to go and put its skin. Okay. And then I'm free to draw like this. Just left click, hold down. All right. And then again, we need to take that down. Don't tend to draw like that, because if you're drawing like that, you're going to be drawing to view. Okay, so it's easier, I find, if I'm always drawing on that layer. Later on, if you want to make it a bit 3D, we can go into the perspective, but as long as you're drawing, I prefer to have it on that. There are other ways to restrict where you're drawing, but I'll just keep it simple like this for now. So that's the hair, okay? And then I'm going to quickly make a jumper, or jersey, or whatever we call it wherever in the world we are. And so that's the jumper layer. And then, so remember, we have to make the jumper material, J-U-M-P-P-E-R. I don't think in America you call it jumpers, do you? I've spent quite a lot of time over there, and I don't think you call it jumpers. Let me know if you do. I'm going to go back there in the autumn of 2022 if the corona is, or the Omicron or whatever it is going then. A bit of history for you if you're watching a few years later. It's still the time of Omicron. Hopefully 5 years later it will have been over. I don't know. So that's the jumper, and that's the jump. So we're on the jumper layer, and then I'm just going to left click and draw. So I'm just trying to do this quite quickly actually, so you just get what to do. So that's the jumper. And again, it's nicely embedded on the below the lines. Okay. So that's good. And I'll just finish off and just make eyes. So I'm gonna, whoops, I'm gonna plus click that. I'm gonna make a new material, eyes. All right. And then I'm gonna turn off stroke. And then I'm gonna put on fill. And then I'm gonna make the eyes white. Okay. And then I'm gonna go and make sure I'm on layer. And you could miss this, but you want to remember to make the eyes layer, because if not, I'll be drawing on the jumper layer. And that kind of just it makes it complicated, so I prefer to just split all the layers up. And as you see, when I quickly animate this, it'll make some sense. Okay, so there's somebody balloon. They've got a bit of a stoop there, but that's basically the basic thing just from a drawing. Okay, and I've got it on the material preview shader. If we take it up there, we'll see that it's dependent on lighting as well. So if I left click this lights, then we can actually light it properly. Actually, with blender lights, that wasn't an option a few years ago with grease pencil. We had to sort of had a special light on it. Okay, so that's good. So I'm just going to go to 3, and I'm going to add a background. In fact, I'm going to make the jumper a different color because I'm going to make that background blue. So what should we make it? Should we make it? Yeah, let's make it a red jumper. That's nice. Okay. So now I'm going to go Shift and A, and I'm going to do plane and the plane, and I'm going to do RY90. So now I'm not going to do this as a grease pencil object, it's just a plane. So I'm going to scale it up. And as you can see, it's got a bit of, actually it's in the same, vertical as the grease pencil. So I'm going to go GX, okay? And as you can see, it's got a bit of a shine, okay? So I'll add a new material. This is just a normal material, it's not a grease pencil. And I'll call that, just for efficiency, sky, okay? And then I'm going to change it to blue using the color spinner. And it's basically a bit, it needs to be very, if I make it rough, can you see that? See, it's got the shininess on. I'm just going to make it rough. So it just looks like a diffuse sky. It's a bit depressing, isn't it, the color? So it's a depressing day. It's a grey January, mild day here near Glasgow. So yeah, so let's make it a bit more happy. Sort of Caribbean. There we go. That's nice. That's my anticipation of going somewhere nice and sunny when I do that. Okay, so that's good. And obviously save this. Make sure you save this because my battery's running low. Just a minute. I'm going to press pause here because I forgot to turn on the power with my laptop. Just a minute. Hey there. Yeah. So that wasn't very professional, but there you go. It's good. And here's the results. So now what do we want to do is quickly, I'll show you how I animate it and get it onto Instagram. Well, I won't show you on Instagram, but I'll show you how to animate it to do it very quickly. So I'm going to go to 3. And what you want to do is you want to go to Dope Sheet, because this is where the special animation tools for grease pencil are. So in Dope Sheet, it's not Dope Sheet, it's in Dope Sheet, the editor type. So you go to Dope Sheet and then you go to grease pencil, all right? And then now we can kind of animate this. So the way I animate it is using sculpt mode. So we can actually use sculpt mode in grease pencil. And you can see you've got all these great tools. You can actually edit what you've done quite, you've got smooth, it's really good. Okay, and you've got loads of other things here as well. Yeah. So yeah, you've got push, grab, randomize. Thickness is really useful. So you can drag it and it gets thicker depending on the strength and the radius, or you can make it get thinner as well. Okay. And then this one here is probably the most useful because you can actually pull the things around. Okay. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. So if I move that there and I move that like that, it's not keyframing because I need to go back to the timeline. That's as far as I am aware, that's where I have to do that. So I go there, let me know if you know otherwise, and go back to Dope Sheet, when you're doing it on a Dope Sheet. So now when I move it, it will auto key, okay? So now that eye's done something really scary there, so I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to do a bit more careful animation. So remember we had layers. This is where we win because on the layers, we can lock the layer. See that little lock? It's like the Photoshop lock or whatever you use when you have these things. So I'm going to keep the lines I'm gonna not lock the eyes, but I'm gonna lock the jumper. I'm gonna lock the hair, and I'm gonna lock the skin. Okay, so if I don't lock the skin, I'll show you. If I move that, it moves all the skin as well. I don't want to. I just want to make the eyes blink very slightly. It's very kind of subtle mini animation kind of thing. So I'm gonna. So what did I say? Yeah, I'm gonna lock the skin, and I'm just gonna have the eyes in the lines. So that means it's only moving the eyes in the lines. Okay. So just press undo. So I'm gonna, and as you can see, I've accidentally animated that. So that's an important thing when you've got auto keying on, is to remember that. So I'm gonna take it to about frame 20, and then I'm gonna increase the radius a bit. And I'm just gonna do this. This isn't amazingly amazing, but it's just showing you what you can do. Okay, so you kind of move it around, and remember to still be in the right view. Okay. And that's that. So that's a blink. And then what I can do is I can shift and D. Oops. There we go. And I can move that back there, and that's completely done. Yeah, sorry, I made a mistake there. So, okay, so what I need to do is get that keyframe there and shift and D. Okay, and that's copied it once. And that's just repeated the blink. And then I'll just, very basic animation, and I'll shift and D, and then do that again, and then let's just play it on the timeline. Let's actually get the timeline up. Timeline, where are you? I always forget where it is. It's like a block. Okay, and then that's that, and then that's another blink. Okay, so let's just go to. It's a bit long, as it's a bit boring. So I'm going to just take these keyframes a bit down, and I sort of make them a bit slightly randomized, between spacing. It makes it a bit more, Control Z, a bit more organic. So, okay, so that's basically that. Now we can do some other things. So we can come out of sculpt mode. So that's all the animation is for this. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do to show you, because I want to keep this short. Okay, but you could have this on a big screen, just doing this, and just something simple like this, it still adds life to it. I'm gonna also look at some effects. So we've got different types of effects. We've got blur. You can play around with these, but I'm just going to show you the colorize. Okay, not the colorize, sorry, the rim. So the rim adds that kind of that little effect that you get in cartoons and things. Can you see that? It just makes a kind of nice thing like that. And then also I'm going to we have modifiers. It's a bit confusing. We've got effects and modifiers with the grease pencil. So I'm going to go to make sure we find noise. Okay, and noise, if I play this, it looks really distorted. It's not that great. Actually, it's kind of interesting. But if I take the noise down a bit, it just gives that little pencil traditional effect. Okay. And then I'm going to press 0 on my keypad and go to my camera, press N, go to view, camera to view, lock camera to view, okay? And I'll just adjust this camera like that, okay, very quickly. I'm going to finish this soon. Go to camera, get the output settings on the camera. Let's make it 1000 by 1000. Similar, so if I was doing like an Instagram, take that off so I can reduce that a bit in the view, and then zoom that in with the mouse wheel. So say if you're doing an Instagram, this for Instagram, then I'm going to put this on Instagram, James Abell Art, and I'll say that this is from the tutorial I did here. So that's all ready to go. Camera, just very quickly, you'll know this if you've used Blender, you can adjust the field of view in and out. And that's basically it. And all you just do is to go to render. You go up here, you go to output, you specify wherever you want it. So Annie 1, and then accept. It's taking a bit of a while. This is my older laptop. Okay, and then you've got that set up, and rather than a PNG, we're going to animate it as a something like AVI JPEG, and then in order to render, we go to render animation. We don't do render image because that will just do one image, and then that will render the whole lot. At the moment, it's going in this panel here, 1 to 250. I'm just going to take it to 100, and then I'll press render. So you'll be able to check this out today on James Abell Art or in the future. And that's it, basically. Remember, so thanks for those of you that did the group Pay What You Want session last night. I'm going to be doing more of these sessions. The next session I'm going to do is Blender for 3D printing. So these of course, these tutorials accompany my group sessions on Zoom. And, it's basically Blender for artists, digital work for artists, tradigital, mixing digital and digital for artists. So it's all to do with creativity, using these tools, my experience and what you can do with it. So anyway, thank you very much. And remember to do, as everyone says, it's really annoying, bang the bell and to get updates and subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be doing more of this stuff after each workshop now. Thank you so much, and you can check me out on jamesabellart.com and check out some of the links. I've put some links in below, some links to my NFTs on Known Origin, which I used grease pencil before we had the trace image, so I had to painstakingly go over them. So now they'd be more kind of organic looking. And also I've going to include the link for Hero, which is the Blender Foundation, who made a really cool kind of animation using grease pencil. And there's some sums, I think that's my finances or something. Okay, thank you very much, and bye for now. Have a great day. Comments and questions, that's great. Bye.